Так. Vernon, come here, please. Roman, we're just waiting you. Vernon. Шановні друзі, вітаємо.
Dear friends, good morning. We're happy to welcome the journalists who arrived to the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, our sixth Ukrainian national prayer breakfast has finished just several moments ago, and now we have a pleasure to present a book which is devoted to the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, and in Ukraine this is celebrated in line with the presidential decree. Today we have the authors who contributed to this book. We have Professor Vernon Smith. We have also Professor Oleksandr Turchynov, who is Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council. Also, we have Dr. Sheremeta, who is an economist working in Ukraine, and we have Professor Olha Romanenko, who is a representative of the Ukrainian academic community. In several minutes, Mr. Turchynov will leave us for important meeting, but he offers the floor to Professor Vernon Smith.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Дуже дякую. Для мене це велика привілегія бути тут.
The Protestant Reformation is a vivid example of how religious transformation could set in motion institutional changes leading to profound consequences for economic and political development.
Протестантська реформація – це дуже наглядний приклад, який показує, як трансформації релігійні трансформації можуть привести зміни, інституційні зміни, які в кінцевому результаті можуть змінити як економіку, так і політику різних країн.
Economists agree that there is a strong relation between the Reformation and economic growth.
Взагалі, економісти погоджуються з тим, що є дуже велика, сильна взаємозв'язок між релігією і реформацією і економічним розвитком.
We discussed the causal pathways that receive substantial empirical support in academic literature.
В цій книзі ми обговорюємо ті шляхи, ті докази, які показують, яким самим чином реформація вплинула на розвиток Західної Європи.
Some of them, such as work ethic and entrepreneurial spirit of Protestants, were originally suggested by Max Weber.
Деякі з них, наприклад, такі як трудова етика і взагалі дух капіталізму або підприємницький дух протестантизму були взагалі запропоновані Максом Вебером.
While others, such as religious freedom and education, are deeply grounded in economic theory.
А інші механізми, такі як, наприклад, релігійна свобода, освіта, вони, звичайно, мають велику фундацію в економічній теорії.
More recently, other causal pathways have been suggested.
Досить більш недавно інші шляхи, причинно-наслідкові шляхи були запропоновані.
Such as social ethics,
Соціальна етика,
civil society,
цивільна відповідальність або громадське суспільство
and institutional changes.
та інституційні зміни.
we bring our view of these pathways in this book.
І ми пропонуємо вам наш погляд на саме такі механізми в цій книзі.
Шановні друзі, в жовтні
Dear friends, in October this year, we will commemorate 500th anniversary of the event when Luther had posted his famous statements on a door gate of the church, and from that very moment the Reformation in Europe had started. But Luther was not the first reformer, which is known in the Universal Church in the year 1246, the crusade had started, but the Christian knights did not start to the Holy Land. They went to France. They went to the south of France, to the north of Italy, where the heretic studies started to spread. They started to read Bible and holy books in native languages. In the spoken languages, they started to request the not only clergy to lead the holy life, but all the people to pursue the holy lives, not just in church or in monasteries. This was the movement that targeted changes in Europe in 1429, the Albigoan Wars started, and when the crusade, that famous crusade participants conquered the cities, and they asked their holy teachers, preachers, whom to kill first, who were heretics and who were true Catholic believers, and the Holy Fathers suggested to kill everybody, while God would decide later. And thus the first event of Reformation was synced in the bloodshed, and only 3 years later the Reformation started to change human lives, their way of thinking. It brought people to new way of thinking, convinced to take responsibility, personal responsibility in front of God, for myself, for my country, for all the things, all the heritage or legacy which would remain after myself. Currently, we're introducing reforms to Ukraine and study the experience of the most advanced countries which reach the best results, we think. But we do not clearly understand that the program itself does not work unless there are the mediators, carriers of this program. That is, we do not study the spiritual foundation upon which those approaches were built. When the best program is being implemented without understanding the spiritual foundation, the result won't be good. That's why in this book we try to prove that not not only economic or social political program are of importance, that spiritual foundation is of primarily importance. Spiritual foundation for reforms when we start to develop, to build up the country. And I encourage you to read this book, dear friends. Unfortunately, I need to apologize at 11 o'clock sharp. I have an important meeting, and now I would, the publisher will awarded this book to Mr. Turchynov and Professor Smith. This is the book, you can show it, Reformation, the Success of Europe and Chance for Ukraine. That's a big book. It's not a big book, and you can find some time to read it. Vernon, Roman, Ihor, Olha, you can take your seats and we will continue our discussion. Dear friends, as compilers, as research editors, we will continue discussion on the book. The idea came up to write such a book came up to young professors, young researchers a year ago, when we had a discussion when our politicians and in our academic community why some countries flourish while others are declining. And some 10 years ago, writing my doctorate thesis, I have found this correlation between development of corporations and Protestantism in some countries, but our senior professors believed that this correlation is not worth studying, and all such references to correlation were crossed out from the books. And some time ago, we met with Roman Sheremeta, and we came across the idea to establish a team uniting both Western and Ukrainian researchers and to carry out research comprising different aspects of the issue raised. And this was actually a volunteer work on behalf of the scientists, of scholars. And I think this is the first such research in Ukraine. This is interdisciplinary and intercultural project. With this, I would like to give the floor to Roman Sheremeta, who had a tour around Ukraine, a trip around Ukraine, presenting this book. Can you hear me? Okay. We had quite a time during this trip around Ukraine presenting our book. We visited Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv, Kherson, Mykolaiv, and delivered 3-4 lectures per day in each city. I would like to present to you what was the response from the audience to this book. Actually, I can categorize them into 3 types. the students and young researchers perceived our ideas with big enthusiasm. They heard about experimental analysis, empirical analysis developed by Professor Smith, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize, and they were happy to hear about the main ideas of this book. I think that the professors in Europe who saw the monuments to Calvin and who understand how Reformation influenced European economic success, they confirm their readiness to work with us, to continue their cooperation with us. But of course, there was some incidents when elder people who were brought up in essayist tradition, they used to say that the scientific ideas and faith are incompatible, while I would refer to the recent lecture of Professor Vernon Smith in YouTube, where he presents the interconnection between science and faith. And nevertheless, we continue to promote this idea of deep interconnection between economy and faith, between science and faith. After Maidan, we clearly see that during the Soviet era, the power, the authorities tried to eliminate both the economic movements, economic growth, and entrepreneurship and the faith also. Now, in this decommunization era, we clearly can state the causal and cause and result effect and correlation between Reformation and economic development, about the impact of Reformation ideas upon ethics, upon education, upon entrepreneurship, etc. That is what we cover in our book, and encourage you to read it. Today in this room, we have almost all the authors who contributed to this book, and we encourage you to ask your questions to them. They are professionals in their specific sectors of knowledge, and they will answer your questions with all possible competence. Romana, when we studied the Reformation, studied how the Reformation influenced Europe, even those people who do not believe that Reformation had that impact, we currently can state that the Reformation was the Reformation influenced the lowest level of corruption, the biggest transparency in the economy. But now we do not have 500 years for success in a social sphere. What could we do to have such a rapid development, to result with such rapid development more rapidly than in 500 years?
Contemporary economic theory
Сучасна економічна теорія
has developed an important concept,
У нас є дуже така важлива є концепція.
and it's called incentive compatibility.
Ну, правильно вона, можливо, перекладається десь так. Правильна мотивація праці.
And the idea is that the incentives of the individual
Тому ідея в тому, що мотивація, людська мотивація,
need to be compatible with the objectives of growth, economic development, and prosperity for the whole society.
вона повинна рухатися в тому самому напрямку, як мотивація, скажімо, росту, мотивація взагалі розвитку країни і економіки. І особиста мотивація. Тобто ці дві речі, вони повинні разом рухатись.
This is sometimes referred to as property rights.
І деколи ми говоримо про такі речі, як власність на власність, тобто право власності.
And that simply means that the rights of the individual
І це означає, що людські права,
to take action
люди мають право робити якісь рішення, приймати якісь рішення
in his personal affairs
в особистому житті,
need to be compatible with society's desire for growth and prosperity.
і от ті рішення, які люди самі приймають для своєї вигоди, вони повинні рухатись в тому самому напрямку, що потрібно саме для суспільства.
A good introduction to that economic theory
Дуже хороша ніби вступ до цієї теорії економічної,
is first to read Jesus' parable of the talents.
щоб ви почитали притчу Ісуса про таланти.
The basic idea is
І основна ідея саме в тій притчі.
in that parable.
В тій притчі.
Дякуємо. Ну, зараз хочемо надати слово нашому видавцю.
Now we would like to give the floor to our publisher, to Ihor Stepurin. We would like to thank him for such a publication. Why you agreed to cooperate with us, and what do you think about the impact of this book? Thank you for choosing Summit Kniga as a publishing house for your partnership. For us, it was a big honor. I think it was a big responsibility for us. We were fully aware of the importance of this book for Ukraine. Today, we live actually in the world created by Reformation, the administrative borders and ethic and moral foundations, they come from the events which are 500 years old, because the big revolution happened at that time. Book publishing, school education, its origins and roots and comes from the Luther Reformation period. So it's very important that today we had published this book. And one more important aspect, the book market had changed drastically in Ukraine during the last 2 years. We almost rejected from the colonial type of book market. Before that turn, Russian literature took almost 80% of our market, but due to specific measures for protection of our internal book market and embargo on import of Russian books, we managed to change Ukrainian market, and today we have very good translations of the European and global bestsellers, and now we can compare European experience with Ukrainian experience, and it was very precious that in this book Roman and Olga for the first time had collected selected the works of famous international and Ukrainian scholars. This book presents European experience and what it can contribute to Ukraine. As a publisher, I would like to thank all the authors, all the contributors, and encourage all the authors to submit their research works, their publications, their books to our publishing house for further publication. The circulation is 5,000 copies, which is slightly bigger, but we had published posters in the Facebook, and 500 readers responded to these publications. We understood that the market is ready for this book. It's not by occasion that we had chosen this very number of circulation copies. 1,000 copies will be disseminated in the libraries. 1,000 will be supplied to the Canadian and American market, and I would like to thank to our editors and proofreaders who contributed to publication of this book. I would like to thank all our team, because you invested part of your spirit and part of your soul, and we could not do otherwise. I think that this book is worth reading, that it is very optimistic, so I encourage you to buy the book. This won't be the first circulation of the book. I have one more book, one more question. Romane, I know that Europe is preparing to the celebration of the Reformation, and many scholars in Europe carry out this research commemorating the Reformation. Welby, you will mention the names of some researchers. I wanted to present all the illustrations. We had different cover of the book, and we had several designs of the cover, and this is just a marketing marketing approach. So we had several options of design, and we decided to publish in both. Now about now to your question whether we have similar books abroad. Jared Ruban, my friend, recently had published a book this year, Cambridge Press. The book is called Why the West Had Become Rich While the East Had Not Become Rich. And you can buy this book on the Amazon.com. And they do not know such a collection of works. Do we have plans to continue this publication? Some other scholars decided to join us, which suggested to publish similar book ecumenically, universally, and publish it in English. The first 5 sections of this book were presented in English, and we had to translate it. And those scholars were representing different countries. Professor Smith and me, we wrote our chapter first in Ukrainian, then, in English, then translated it into Ukrainian. So, but we have to translate it into German, into Russian, etc. And we would like to disseminate this message all around the world. I think that this is time to questions. That's time for questions and answers. Please do not forget represent yourself.
So I fully agree with the concept that there is a connection, close connection with religion and economic development and development of human rights in the world, and sociology shows it clearly. At the same time, I would like to ask us such an acute question that is really important for the world. And this world that is Protestant, can they oppose this pressure of Islamic fundamentalism and Orthodox Christian Church of Moscow? May I answer this question briefly? I would like to say that about Orthodox Christians, I believe that Protestants, they won, and so if we compare, maybe this is 5-1. Of course, in Ukraine, Orthodox Christianity is the mainstream religion, but Protestants, they are represented better in the world, and in the United States we have a good representation, and we in 25 years the number only increases, and we have the representation of this denomination here, and my colleague can confirm the statistics. The question? Cannot hear it. Look. So, if you have a wish and you want to add something, of course, we want to work together and to contribute. And Oleg Sheremeta want to comment, and he wrote an article for our book, How Reformation Influenced the Medical Sphere. And we had conference on Reformation, and there were different scientists, and interesting statistics was presented. The Institute of Global Trends and Global Research. There is such a global trend, the globalism, and there are some forecasts that until 2050, the main religions are Muslim and Protestantism, and Orthodox Christianity is a denomination that is local, that does not develop, and it stopped its development, and it decreases, and until 2050 the main denominations will be Protestant denomination, and also there will be Islam. And we respect all religions, and we respect all people and the faith of the people, and we look at Reformation as the contribution to the lives of people, and people, they should live according to values, and this provides effect. And when people follow commandments, the shadow economy decreases, and the level of fair competition and freedom increases. And Pavlo Unhurian joined us. He is one of co-authors of this book, and we would like to ask him, you as a scientist, as an expert in state management, what is the influence of Reformation on the efficiency of management of business and administration of the state? Dear colleagues, dear journalists, it's a pleasure for me to present this book. And Reformation became a really powerful event that caused the development of state management, not only in enterprises of 17th century, but also it led to forming of first prototypes of city magistrates that were managed by communities, and the community elected pastors and councils, and these are the principles that are used, and this became model for forming the power. And if we look at the development of genesis of administration, the representation of power as institution, it is based on the ideas of Reformation. And one more important thing I wanted to mention is also important aspect are the modern strategies of management and administration. And there are the most known model is the strategy of sustainable development strategy, and this was declared as the strategy of development of humanity, and this was done in Rio in 1990s, and then it was confirmed during the Earth Summit, and the leaders of the world then gathered in order to decide the fate of humanity, and the idea of sustainable development was proposed by German Daly, professor of Louisiana University, who provided for the strategy of sustainable development in economy. And economy and social component and environment and natural resources, they should be in harmony, and they should be in the strategy of state policy. If we remember Soviet times, this was a political economy, and this was the model of development. This was a social and economic development of separate regions of the USSR. And here it is important to say that unfortunately we only start to use this model of development, of continental, global development. We're only at the beginning. But we can quickly adapt, and it can be used not only for the development of the whole country, but also for the regions. And this is the coefficients of development, and this is economic component, humanitarian and social component, and ecological component. This is the combination of these components, and Reformation influenced the most successful models of management. And in this 21st century, we have results of this Reformation due to the scientists who base their values on Christian grounds. And as a representative of Ukrainian parliament, you travel to European parliament and also to the United States Congress. If you compare in what way the parliaments of those countries operate and how our parliament works, what is the difference in the activity? There is clear difference. We see that the parliaments of G20, they went a long way in the development of the country and in the development of the parliament, and there are many innovations that only discussed in Ukraine, but they successfully work in the parliaments in Protestant countries. And also there is a colossal level of responsibility there, and it is really impressive. And in the United States, in Congress, when they come from their districts to the plenary week of the Congress, a lot of them, they are contributing to their work so much that they are sleeping only for several hours during the week, and they sleep just in the studies. So we are surprised that each congressman has several studies, and during the week they just live there and they work really hard to achieve good results, because in this week they should work on the most important issues concerning security or continental or world level, and also to work on the issues connected with the districts that elected them. So also payment for the work also differs, but the most important is responsibility. People delegate important and responsible people to these positions, and these people, they get big salary, about 1 million a year. Of course, Ukraine has to go a long way to these standards, but we should have a responsible attitude, and we can learn lessons and see the example of our colleagues from the West and also from the East. Our colleagues in South Korea also work really hard and can be good example. And in Brazilian parliament also they have good examples, and Brazilian society, they now work more on the issue of evangelic development, and we see that they really advance in this area. So please, Vernon Smith, ви можете відповісти.
To come back to the first question.
Це до першого запитання.
And thank you. That's a
Thank you. Do you have other questions? Please ask. Please. First, introduce yourself. Yuri Luklanchuk, Nation and the State newspaper. Interrelated question. Maybe 2 revolutionary states should be done by Ukraine to return to a civilized modern world. The first one, at the first stage, is to break free from the Moscow Orthodox Christian fundamentalism, and now it is an ongoing project and also evolutionary way through Baptist community that develop now in Ukraine and show example to other Christians how to behave and live according to the commandments and Holy Book, and maybe Ukraine should use a Protestant way of religious development. As a representative of Ukrainian youth who thinks about the values of Reformation, we believe that our society, it is in its essence, is post-atheistic. Many people call themselves Christians, but they do not read Bible and they do not follow the commandments. And in this book, we didn't say about the difference between Catholic and Christian denominations, and we wanted just to show mechanisms. And among authors of the book, we have Orthodox Christians and Protestants and Catholics, and these are scientists who searched the ways of development. And Martin Luther, he translated the Bible into the language of common people, and each person was able to study the Bible and live to the principles. And you know that we attend a lot of conferences concerning Reformation, and Predosobinsky, museum director, he said that in Ukraine there were such phenomena. First Bible was translated, that was Peresnopnitsk Bible, and people were provided with this book, and the people felt more respect to each other. They this was a positive effect for the whole society. So we respect our brothers who are Catholics, brothers and sisters from the Orthodox Christian Church, and even atheists. And we believe that the last 6 commandments, not to steal, not to kill, they do not work without the first 4. So if people do not respect God, it is difficult to live according to principles, to the values. So if if you see this bright example of the Jesus Christ who sacrificed himself for people, so you can see this good example and you can be more tolerant to other people. So I would like to say that I'm a proponent of a free choice for everyone. So this is said in the Bible, and one of the mechanisms of why economy of the West developed, people had a choice in their faith, in their beliefs, whether to read Bible or not. And as an economist who believe in markets and free markets and saw the success of the American system due to this free market, I don't believe that we should force people or give some preferences. I believe that people and should be free, and people should read the Bible, and they should find information there. And when they find this truth, they will be able to take proper decisions. If something wrong with Moscow Orthodox Christian Patriarch, maybe they can see this, that they are wrong, and then they will be able to change their opinion. I am a proponent of religious freedom, and there should not be any oppression, and people should make free choices. And my colleague confirmed this, so my colleague will comment on this also. So please, so maybe Vice President of Manuel, I heard an interesting information. Maybe one of Ukrainian scientists, he collected information that only 2 scientists who got the Nobel Prize were atheists, and all others, they believe in God. Do you have this information about the percentage of scientists who became Nobel Prize winners, about their beliefs?
Ми не знаємо, професор Сміт не знає.
So the professor, he believes in God, and Mr. Altman won the Nobel Prize for the theory of games, and as I know, he believes in God, and and I know many other scientists, Mr. Shvalov and others, and it is difficult to say about statistics. I do not have such information, so no one carried out such a research, and I do not know whether this kind of research exists, but I believe that it would be nice to conduct such a research. I would like to stress on the main idea of this book. We do not believe that economic prosperity is the only goal for the country, because the level of happiness, it doesn't depend on economic development. And what are the factors that influence happiness except economic factors, and what is more important, material or spiritual happiness?
Що ви подивитесь на щастя людини і рівень зарплати, то воно так трошки йде догори. Бідним, звичайно, важко бути щасливим. Але коли воно доходить десь на середньому 70-80 тисяч доларів на рік на сім'ю, воно так от стає таке флет, тобто таке вже не залежить. Прямолінійний, і потім в кінці, навіть якщо ми бачимо там мільйонерів, то воно вже йде навіть трохи на спад. Хоча тих мільйонерів не так і багато, тому статистично ми не можемо доказати, що воно має негативний саме вплив.
So poor person cannot be happy, of course, because you lack everything. But when you reach a level like $70,000-80,000 per year, your level of happiness reaches some higher level, and then it remains flat. If imagine a curve, and this will be the last question, maybe. We are in 21st century now. This is the age of IT and technologies, and it establishes connections between people all around the world. In the past, the countries remained separate, while today people are all connected. Maybe this age of information technologies may result in excessive competition between religions, and maybe in some 100 years we will witness the domination of one or two religions. We did not research this phenomena in this book. We looked retrospectively and studied how the ideas of Reformation had influenced Europe and the world. I would like Roman Sheremeta to strengthen once again. Your question is not so easy. We cannot answer it immediately. In the book, we could not present our guesses. We had to present results of our research, not to become so-called experts. And here in this room, we have our co-authors, the contributors of this book. And these co-authors clearly show the idea that Protestantism made the cause-result effect on the development of modern Western world, and we consequently looked at the economic development, law systems, methods of research, medicine, arts and music, and it was religious freedom, the work ethics, the social ethics, impact on civil society made by the Reformation. It changed the way of development of countries in Europe, and our book shows that biblical principles that Protestants and Reformation started to use, they changed education, they changed religious freedom, they had impact on those cause-result effects. Traveling around Ukraine to all the students, we ask the same question: who are Christians among you? And almost 90% raised hands. Then I asked the question, who had read the Bible, and only 10% raised their hands. This Bible is the book that changed the world. This is one of the most readable books in the world, and I encourage you to read the Bible and to take the principles written in Bible for yourself personally. About Protestantism, we say that there are good things which we can learn from them. When the Soviet Union collapsed, we wished to change the situation of that time and wish to implement that principle. So I think there are some approaches coming out from Reformation which we would like to implement from Ukraine. And to finish, I would like to invite all the contributors to the stage to make a family photo. And we have Professor Vernon Smith, we have Roman Sheremeta, PhD in economy, Olha Romanenko, Mr. Oleksandr Turchynov, Pavlo Unhurian, Leonid Kistersky, Irina Sidanich. We invite you to the stage. On stage, Andy McIntosh, who lives in the UK, Stephen Benham from the United States, Lawrence Wilkinson, Peter Nahe, Olena Lvova, who studied the influence of Reformation upon law, Anatoly Televyak, representative of medical science, Andrian Bukovinsky, Yulia Hladka, Stanislav Gruntkovsky, who studied the impact of Reformation on family life, Oleg Sheremeta, the brother of Roman, Jeff Crane. We invite Mr. Crane here, and Andrian Bukovinsky, who studied the lessons of Reformation for family life. Thank you very much for cooperation. We had been writing the book for a long period of time, and I think that we will review it and improve later.